Asia, South Asia. Whenever you look at the Indian, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Filipinos, or you can definitely see the elements of Africa. They are all
The presence of the first Africans in Canada can be traced back to the 1600s. Their stories of strength, courage, and perseverance in the struggle for freedom are an integral part of not only American but Canadian heritage as well. This is the African Descent Canadian History in British Columbia.
Direct descendants from where? From Africa. And whenever you go to India, you wonder why there is black Indians. When you go to China, why there are black Chinese? It's because of that history that has not been known. So the one you can check for me then. And then in Canada wise, we see the first immigrant here. If you look at all of these folks, slavery, Matthew da Costa. Many people claim that Canada did not participate into slavery, which I've just mentioned here. But I can guarantee you that the provinces like Quebec, when it was under the Crown of France, Quebec was what we known as the New France. Quebec practiced slavery. They sold buying of humans from Africa under the Jesuits. They brought the first slave from Africa was known as Olivier Lajeunesse. Olivier was a younger boy, 8 years, brought by the Jesuits, and then he was sold into New France, which is presently known as Quebec. And then Matthew da Costa, the man you see here, this is Olivier Lajeunesse. Olivier said that even if I'm black, and even if you take all my skin here, inside I will be white, but a few days later, I will recover my skin, it will be black again. I will not change at all. He was very young, 8 years when he was sold, and he recorded to be the first immigrant here as a slave, sold into New France, away from Madagascar. And then this is Matthew da Costa, brought by the Portuguese, and then he sold into New France around 1600. Matthew da Costa had already arrived here. He spoke several languages, including the indigenous languages. So slavery, there was black loyalists in English Canada, 1760 into 1800. So when we talk about the black loyalists, while Canada was, United States was fighting with the United Kingdom was fighting with the France over the colony control of annexation of Canada, they decided to partner with the slaves in the United States. And those are the people, Africans who were already enslaved. And the British convinced them that if you join us and you fight over taking over Canada, we will be giving you the land. There is a land in Canada and you will be free. They signed an agreement with the United Empire Loyalists. They formed the military regiments, the Ethiopian regiments, the Black Battalions, the Maroons, and then they invaded Canada, kicking out France out of Canada, and they consolidated the British into this, making Britain as a colony of this country today. So they brought the Queen Her Majesty taking over this. Africans contributed to that. And that's during all those negotiations, they were given the land down in Batchtown and Shelburne in Nova Scotia and Halifax. So, but later the land was not good. They decided, Thomas Peters, who was a Nigerian slave, he convinced the Queen and Granville Sharp and Henry Thornton that the land they gave us in Nova Scotia is not good at all. We needed to go back to Africa. And under the negotiation with the Queen, Henry Thornton and Granville Sharp were anti-abolitionists. They decided to convince the Queen that Africa, there is a new land, a colony known as Sierra Leone, and these people should be returned back in what we call Back to Africa movement that took place. About 15,000 Africans were sailed from Nova Scotia, and then they went back to Freetown. They formed what is known as called Freetown. So when you hear the capital city of Sierra Leone is called what? Freetown, meaning free slaves from where? From Canada. And that Liberia, there Marcus Garvey organized the Back to Africa movement, trying to return African Americans from Africa. He purchased Liberia to settle them. All those who were struggle for racism and discrimination, and you can see how this impacted the lives of Africans Americans. And then you look at the Back to Africa movement. That's exactly what you have just mentioned, the refugee Negroes, the Maroons, you know, the Canada, many of them, they thought actually when they came to Canada that Canada is a safe haven. But later on, one historian said that a lot of Africans thought that Canada was a safe haven for the African refugees, but actually it was a lion's paw. They fell into a lion's paw, you know. So the African descent migration in BC, the first settlers on Granville Village, which is Vancouver downtown. Vancouver downtown was not known as it is Vancouver. It was changed the name because of Captain Vancouver, but the city, the original name of the city is known as Granville Village. And that's when the African Americans already arrived there in the year 1858. Many Africans, some went into history, spread around Hoganizale, Vancouver downtown, east side. Vancouver was not known, Africans were not known in Vancouver by 1950 until Vancouver Sun, the newspaper, said that 700 Negroes live next door, of whom we don't have an idea. And then 1958, the city of Vancouver planned what we know as the urban renewal. The Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation decided that the black community in Vancouver were portrayed, you know, the stereotyped as the red light district, the crime area, and they decided to clear the land, setting the viaduct that destroyed the neighborhood. And that is because of the authoritarian plans, the ideology, the prejudices, and the Negro led to the Negro removal. Until today, when you come to Vancouver, even here in Surrey, you rarely see that there is no blacks at all. There is no Africans, just because of the explanation I've given it to you. Okay. So then this is, it can lead us to the next slide, Duale, and check out the, thank you so much. But some people, they always ask that, did really Africans made any impact in this country? Someone may ask, do Africans really have any impact? And whenever you see the African children is here, many of them, they are not aware, definitely. The reality is that Africans contributed to the development. The African history has contributed to the development of Canadian, American, and the British history. And this is, you can see, 1709, slavery is legalized in Coronado, New France. 1783, the black Arabs came to Canada, as I mentioned there. 1848, the community of Africaville, Nova Scotia, is created. And then you go down into migration to the West Rockies, British Columbia, 1858. But again, if you look at here in BC, James Douglas, there are various reasons why Sir James Douglas decided to invite the African Americans to come here in BC. First of all, which ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to let you know that this province, the BC, was first governed by a mixed black person, African descent person. The first governor, James Douglas, his mother was the Afro descendant from Guyana. And when you go to Guyana there in Caribbean, you will find statues all across the city about James Douglas. And then here, Sir Mifflin Gibbs, Wister Gibbs, was a famous lawyer who negotiated while James Douglas, he made a negotiation whether the black African descendant should be coming to BC or they should go down to Mexico. And there was various reasons why they made. One was the invitation by James Douglas, but there was what is known as the Fraser Gold Rush in the British Columbia, in the Cotina, in the northern BC. There's a lot of gold miners. So the blacks came here with a promise that they are going to get what? They are going to get jobs into gold mining. But that was not the main reason. There were prejudice in the United States and discrimination. And there's also the Jim Crow segregation that separated the blacks and white. And finally, there was the hostility. Being blacks, being an African in the United States, it was the only option. Then these people, they should come to BC. And then if you go back to Mifflin Gibbs, he became a governor of the United States in Madagascar, and then later came back to Canada. Then he became an official judge in the United States, and many of his descendants are still directly historically existing today.